Hi, my name is Joseph Alai. Welcome to my channel. And today I'm going to talk about detachment and how to detach to manifest whatever you want quickly. In effect, having tested against repeating imaginal acts over and over for consistently days and weeks, or versus in comparison to imagining a single time or enough times just to impress the subconscious mind and letting it go, you find that consistently, not only with myself, but my clients as well, and the subscribers that have been following me for many years, that the person who is capable of detaching from their imaginal act or the desire itself is far more likely to manifest their desire in a shorter span of time than those who do not detach. And I myself have some amazing experiences, and I'm going to share with you two stories quickly, but they are going to outline and illuminate the process of detachment, how they have an amazing and tremendous impact on your reality, what I call the slingshot effect, some of you may have heard of before, how this can be utilized in an applicable way so that you can very much strategically map out what you're going to do and expect the result. So before we begin, please hit the like button. It does something to the YouTube algorithm. Those who wouldn't normally be able to see this will be able to see this. Hit the subscribe button if you like these systematic, data-driven, predictable techniques that have been derived from over 12 years of testing and even longer of observing manifestation. Throughout my career of systematically and deliberately manifesting, I have tested tens of thousands of written tests, and what I teach is derived from the common denominators that I myself and those of my clients who have put this to the test and who have observed and logged their manifestations. And that's what I give to you. So if you like this, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to be notified for my videos that are released Tuesdays and Fridays without fail in the evening time. That's 10 p.m. London time, 5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Pacific time. So let's just, also there's a workbook that goes with every one of my videos now. They are not just thrown together, they are meticulously outlined and put together so that you can learn this material and implement it into your life so that by the time you're done with that workbook, you're not just hearing what I'm saying, but you have effectively implemented a data-driven approach to manifestation so that there's no more hope manifesting. You do what works and you get what works. So hopping into it then. We talk about detachment, very popular topic lately as it relates to things such as affirmations or living in the end, a very confusing series of topics. I'm sure you, just like myself, for many, many years was very confused with this idea of persistence and living in the end continuously, or just always imagining. With my own experience, I had put to the test, I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of manifestations that I observed, witnessing what happened when I was able to stop imagining and stop desiring with an intensity of obsession versus what happens when I was more obsessed and when I was not able to let go. And also just systematically applying these techniques, things that would force me to imagine over and over again. And I would meticulously map out certain days where I would do things one way and then days I would do things another way. And then the results began to come in. And that was before the channel. With my channel, now I have the opportunity of taking the results that my subscribers and even not my subscribers submit to me so that I can find these common denominators and submit them to you. But what I find that is most amazing and impactful is this concept of detachment that many people, including myself, used to be detrimentally afraid of. In the, I suppose you could say, the grand scheme of reality, it's just generally thought that if you leave something alone with your mind, then you don't want it and it will fade away. And I think that's a reasonable thing. If you don't take care of something, then it will diminish. Interestingly enough, however, nothing diminishes within the realm where manifestations come from. And there is actually a contradiction, not a contradiction, I suppose you could say, it's just the reverse. As opposed to continuously putting in effort, which is something we do in this modern world, there's essentially a law of reversed effort, which is you yield to the desire. You imagine something as if it's true, do it to the best of your ability until you're saturated with a realistic experience that you could almost say is like a memory, like it really happened. And once you can do that, if you can do that, then you can effectively drop the imaginal act. You can stop imagining and walk away from it. And that is generally the fastest way to receive a manifestation in comparison to how I used to manifest. Back before I had gotten all of the data and results that I needed to derive what I use today to effectively manifest everything in my reality, it was more of testing the variety of sources. I had what I could find, and I tried what I could find. Unfortunately for myself, I was in a dire situation and position where it was life or death, literally. And if you watched my last video, I touched very slightly upon my situation. I had, after the tragic death of my little brother, I had fallen into despair, depression, and addiction. I was nearing upon death, and the last thing my parents needed, and I mean, even my brother, my sister, what they needed was for my friends, was for another one to perish. But I was driven and motivated to not let this stuff take me down. Yes, tragedies happen, and yes, they happen to everyone, but there is a way to get out of it. And so I latched on to manifestation with the fervor as a drowning man would latch on to a life preserver. But unfortunately, as I said, a lot of the stuff that I used to listen to and used to read, really was reading mostly, wasn't really working 100% for me. And one of the things that I found was this idea and concept that we must emit an emotion or feeling consistently in order to draw in, because the concept at the time was an attraction, some sort of beam or an emission of an energy that draws something in like a magnet. And if we didn't do that, then we would cut off our desire from us and we would stop the process of bringing something in. Now, I had continuously been manifesting smaller things. Now, at the time, it was not obvious to me what was happening with those things that were really big and important versus those things that were a little bit smaller, or those things that I could detach from. But ultimately, over the years, as I consistently began to test this and observe and compare information and discover new people and test new techniques and essentially observe or broaden my mindset to really begin to take in this stuff, it became really clear to me the things that I was getting were the ones that I was able to detach from. And the ones that I was not able to, the ones that I was obsessing over, the ones that I was imagining obsessively, continuously, pretending that I'm always that person, are the ones that never came. Now, the story I want to talk about today, one of them is with regards to an appointment that I had today. This lady that I know, I had an appointment with her. She's not very well paid. She works for the public sector. And interestingly enough, recently, Athena and I had taken a walk by the building and saw her in a nice Mercedes outside. And I specifically commented to Athena and said, "Is that a Mercedes? How does she have a Mercedes?" And we had a conversation about it. Well, today I had an appointment with this lady and I walked inside and she asked me how I was doing. Now, this is really crazy and interesting in and of itself. She began to inquire about my life a little bit, as she had never done before. Usually we just get on with business and then continue. But in this case, she asked me, you do YouTube, right? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, what do you do on there? Can you make a lot of money? And I said, you can make, if you're good, you can make a lot of money. And she said, well, what do you do? Do you do like meditations or frequency videos? And I was like what? I said, I do manifestation and I teach like law of attraction. And I use that term loosely, but it's because people can relate. And she immediately was like, and I've been seeing this lady for the whole breadth of the time I'm in England now, multiple times, and never knew this. But she said, I manifested a car and I also manifested a house. And she went to tell me how she did it immediately. And she told me that she was bankrupted and she was homeless. She was made homeless by her husband. And after divorcing him, she had 3 kids to take care of. Now, this lady is middle-aged, sweet lady. But she said what happened was is she read a book that taught her about manifesting. And what she began to do with a very simplistic ideology of what manifesting was to pretend that she was driving a Mercedes. Now, she was literally bankrupt, had nothing, was homeless. She had to live with family with her children. And what ended up happening was this is what she told me specifically, exactly. She said, I would intermittently visualize that I was driving this vehicle, the exact vehicle. I knew what it looked like, and it was, my visualizations weren't perfect, but I would just imagine it, and I would imagine what it would be like, and I would imagine what it would feel like, and all of what would be happening. And then I would do is, if I saw someone driving the car, I would be grateful that they had it. I would express gratitude that they had it. And then, she says, I think one thing that is the most important thing is I would detach from it. I would not be fixated on it. After I was done visualizing, I would let it go. And then if I felt prompted to do it again, days later or weeks later, I would do it. And then, so this was, I forget, she said this was in October. And then in December for Christmas, someone that she knew who had no idea about her desire right now, consider this. A woman is homeless and she is in a position where she has no money, right? Imagine her telling someone, I want a Mercedes. No way, it would never happen. She's in a position where that's not even in her realistic perception. No one would take her seriously. Just put yourself in those shoes. They would make her seem selfish, especially if she's living with someone else. So I'm telling you that to put in a realistic perspective, because this is exactly what she told me. She said, I didn't tell anyone. And for Christmas, someone bought me the exact Mercedes that I had been imagining. And not only was it the exact model, but I had imagined a custom model, and the person had purchased the custom upper class model, the exact one that she had imagined. She said specifically, out of her way, she went to say to me, I think the most important thing is to be detached. Now, I've just had the very briefest, I smiled and said, that's just amazing. I don't really let on to people that I have systematically figured this out. That's not really what it is. I would rather have a nice conversation with a person and just hear them out. And it just reminded me about how incredibly amazing the act of manifestation is. And it's interesting to me when thinking back to some of my most profound manifestations, such as moving to California, such as manifesting my business, manifesting relationships. The most powerful changes that have unveiled themselves in my reality came from imagining and letting it go. And in fact, I could say almost every single manifestation has come, if not all of them, I cannot think of a single one, that these manifestations come when I stop thinking about them. Now, I'm going to quickly with that story, what I want to tell you is one more very briefly and talk about the slingshot effect, and then explain to you how this relates to you and your desires. Now, you've likely been saturated with information related to robotic affirmations, repeatedly imagining within your mind. If you have been, you should check out my previous video as I talk about how to use a single statement to repeat it just once or twice, a couple of times until it's loud and clear in your mind, meaning less than a couple seconds, and you will receive your manifestation, or writing it down, right? That is enough to impress. But given you're likely in a position where you're unsure of what to do, you're hearing one thing, you've put all your stock in one thing, you've seen all these people comment and say this works, but then you come to my videos and you see them say, oh my God, I only imagined once and this works. So what do you believe? What are you listening to? What can help you, right? So from my perspective, imagining a multitude of times will not prevent you necessarily from getting your manifestation. Imagining obsessively will. But Over the years, my objective with the mathematical mind, I always like to find the common denominator, the least common denominator between anything, right? I'm a pattern man. That is what I am. That's what I've always been obsessed with. Math mind, computer scientist, physicist, things that always require numbers and patterns, probability expert. I have discovered using something that I call the list method. I'm starting to call it the list method exercise now because I'm seeing there's people starting to release copies of it or different versions of it. This is a very peculiar thing that I figured out, and it was with regards to impressing first it was impressing a new belief by writing something down one time and never thinking about it again. But what I have meticulously discovered is if you can get a good, loud enough, and clear enough depiction of the experience within your mind, such as an imaginal act or a statement or decree or something that you're writing down because your focus is solely focused upon this thing, you're solely and acutely aware of one single thing. After that, you can detach. And in fact, you should detach. Otherwise, you never, the way that it's reflected in scripture, the way that I've seen it in my reality, the way that Neville Goddard talks to it, is you'll dig up the seed if you keep going. If you look or if you never let it go, you never stop conditioning it, which in essence is never stop creating the seed, therefore never dropping it into the ground. But ultimately what I found is another common denominator is the most impactful and effective and imaginal act. If you imagine that thing to the best of your ability, to the point where you're saturated with it, whether there's a thrill or a desire, what have you, whilst you imagine it, the point is you imagine it until you are filled with it, and then you let it go. The story that I wanted to tell you was in regards to, and I'll keep it very brief, it was in regards to a specific person that I had back in 2015. It was a person whom I dated, a person who I was in a committed relationship with, and a person with whom it took a horrific turn. This person, I never told this story before, and it's very emotional. It draws upon a lot of pain and trauma in my experience. But I had a relationship where someone broke up with their fiance to be with me. This was back in 2015 or 2014. The relationship lasted quite a while, but what ended up happening was the culmination or the climax of that relationship was me getting into a fist fight with the ex-fiance, her breaking up with me, blocking me, completely stopping talking to me, and then me being in a state of desperation and obsession, so depressed, I was beside myself. I couldn't even fathom living without this person. And so for a couple days, I was still in the elementary stages of manifestation. This is 2015 at this point, 2016 at this point. I think it just turned. It's the end of 2016 at this point, nearing the end of 2016. And what happened was I pulled out all the stops on everything that I knew. Now, I had been at this point, what I did was I put on my imaginal act hat and I performed something that Neville Goddard originally talked about, which was for 3 days obsessively and continuously remaining in the state of the wish fulfilled, right? And ultimately it will happen. But what happened here was obsessively, continuously doing it, also felt and filled with anxiety and fear. Just imagine you're in a relationship with a person who your whole future hinged upon, and then it gets ripped out from under you instantaneously. That was the position I was in that many of you were. And it was a devastating experience. I was sickened, grief-stricken. It was horrendous. And so I put on that imaginal act hat and imagined consistently, repeatedly, continuously. But what happened effectively was nothing. The more I imagined, nothing happened. The more I imagined, nothing happened. It instilled in me a lot of pressure and stress. If I wasn't doing it the right way, if I wasn't consistently imagining, this must be the root of why it's not working, was my theory. But again, like I said, it's just the reverse. What happened was something that essentially rained on me. The answer was like lightning, essentially. When this happened, everything became extremely clear. But what happened was this. I woke up one morning on 3 or 4, day 5, just really beside myself. I was depressed and I thought about ending my life. And I thought to myself, that's it. Done. It's not worth it. I used to be a very depressed individual. I struggled a lot in my life. But what happened in that moment was I completely said, I am done, no more. It's over. Finished. And it was as if there was someone waiting for me to say that. Because something, not even say that, but to shift within. There is a shift when you say it's done. When I say it's done, I don't mean like, oh, the manifestation is coming. I mean, no, I'm finished with this. It's over. I'm finished. I am done. And that was when the manifestation began to unfold. That was when she came and started begging immediately. Literally probably within a matter of hours, if I recall properly. And I was done though, luckily. So I just said, nah, I'm done. I don't care. I don't want it, right? But that was when all the information started pouring into me. All the situations in my life that I'd repeatedly, obsessively wanted something so bad, I put myself in those positions, right? Not even attempting to manifest in most of these cases. But then as soon as I let go, boom, the thing happens. That's what I call the slingshot effect. Go in the grocery store, you're looking for the item that you're trying to find obsessively, really struggling to find it. Me, perfect. I'm horrible at finding things, likely because I believe I am. Right? You can ask Athena. I'm not good at it. But essentially, when I would go in, it would always be when I would stop looking for that thing because I couldn't find it, boom, it would appear right in front of my face. I would say, forget it, and walk away. And as I walk away, boom, it's right there and appears right in front of my eyes. Looking for jobs. I remember obsessively, continuously applying for jobs, job after job after job after job after job. The desire and that knowing that I was going to get one, but as I was doing, I applied for so many jobs. And as soon as I gave up, it wasn't even one of the jobs that I had imagined for. A different job had found my resume online in happenstance, randomly, asked me if I wanted a job, and immediately found a life-changing job. The moral of the story is, over and over again, meticulously tested against, imagining over and over, living in the end repeatedly until you are obsessed beyond measure. Whatever you want to call it, this prevents the manifestation from being able to start. For as long as you imagine, it never drops into the ground. What you will notice is when you begin to test something like I call the list method exercise, it's the things that you forget about are the ones that happen. The things that you never stop thinking about are the ones that get delayed. You really find the meaning and the truth behind imaginal acts are seeds that must be dropped into the ground, and seeds must die before they begin to grow. So it's the moving away from your awareness, one thing, and onto another is the cause of the dropping. So detachment is not forgetting about something entirely and stopping wanting it. That case that I talked about with a specific person was an extraordinary case. The majority of time, almost every other time besides that, it isn't required that I stop wanting it, right? I'm a normal human being. You imagine something and you eventually become that person, which means a bridge moves you there. But in this case, what I find is dropping it, stopping imagining, looking at something else, being able to focus on something else entirely is good enough. And that you can perform in a way that you deliberately do it. You think of what you want, you imagine what you want, and structure and plan your day around in a way where after you imagine, you either fall right asleep or you do something else. You go about your day, you get focused. If there's something that is difficult for you to stop thinking about, meticulously plan something that is solely taking your focus. And that's what you should be focused on right after. Another trick is imagining one thing and then stopping that and imagining something completely different on a completely different topic. That's one of the most common things that I would suggest to my coaching clients when they were having trouble, especially as it relates to a specific person. Yes, imagine a specific person. Yes, imagine your desires and your beliefs and assumptions and what have you, but focus also on something else. Switch back and forth. It's the cheat code that I have found that has meticulously made cause or room for me to strategically plan my life in a way. So I just imagine and then I switch to a different imaginal act, or I imagine and then I do something else. At this point in the game, it's not a matter of whether it's going to happen. It's a matter of when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And with that knowledge, as you consistently, repeatedly test over and over, you will build that positive bank of experiences that very clearly teach you what works with manifestation and what doesn't. And one thing that will help you more than almost anything else is the act of detaching from the imaginal act after you imagine it. And so I'm going to leave it there for now. I hope that was helpful for you. If you liked it, hit the like button. Make sure you download that workbook. It will sign you up to my email list, which you will receive information from me that is not posted anywhere else and pushed anywhere else. And plus, that workbook is not just thrown together. It is meticulously packaged and strategically crafted to cause you to engage in the activity, to manifest. So not only will you pick up the thing that I'm teaching, but by the end of completing that workbook, you will also have properly impressed your subconscious mind with things that you want. So download that, hit the bell icon for the content that's released every Tuesday and Friday at 10 p.m. London time, 5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Pacific time, and I will see you on the flip-flop. Peace.